Hello, all. Welcome back. And I'm your host, Dinakar Peri, for another episode of Carnegie Defense Insights. Let's quickly see what we have today. So, the Indian Navy has commissioned 3 warships in one go on Saturday, and then some new developments on the jet engine front. Deals under the pipeline. We'll get to that. And of course, something that keeps coming up again and again. How many Rafales? Doesn't have any losses during Operation Sindoor? Some new buzz on that. We'll just look at those things. So quickly, to the Navy commissioning. So we'll first watch a short clip and then go on to what it is. So now we'll get to what are they. As I said, 3 warships were commissioned at Kolkata in the presence of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and each of them serves a distinct purpose. This was at the Garden Reach Shipbuilders Limited, one of the defense shipyards, public sector shipyards. And as you see on the screen, 3 different ships: one a hydrographic vessel, one a frontline stealth frigate, the other is a anti-submarine vessel, which again, as I said, each of them serves a distinct purpose. And if you can see the comment down, uh, as was said by the Navy Chief Admiral Krishna Swaminathan at the commissioning ceremony, the frigate in the center, what you see, that's the 5th vessel of the Project 17 class of stealth frigate. There's probably we should do something on this later on how these different classes of ships are being constructed. So the 5th ship, as was said by the Navy Chief, was built at a 33% less time than the previous frigate program, the previous classes. That's a major improvement because the keel laying, which is the beginning of a ship construction for any ship, to or submarine, to the delivery when the ship is fully ready. So that couple of phases, the keel laying, then the vessel is launched into water, where about 50% of the construction is complete, and the ship is or the vessel is floating on its own, and it goes out 50 or upwards. So the balance of the construction is completed when the vessel, ship or submarine is on the water on its own. And after that, it goes trials, extensive sea trials, and then the vessel is delivered to the Navy, after which it is formally commissioned. So these are the different, the normal process for any vessel, for any ship or submarine. So that's 33% is a significant improvement in that. So on that note, just a quick look at what were the major commissionings that happened this year. I mean, last year, as you see on the screen, there were 12 warship commissionings, which is a record by several metrics. That also includes one submarine, as you see the last but one. The Warship is the last of the Scorpion class submarines that was commissioned into the Navy last year. And this year we already had 5. 2 more are expected in July next month, and the remainder of the year we are likely to see another 4 to 6 deliveries to the Indian Navy, which means once delivered they'll also be shortly commissioned. So that's what we have on the naval front. So to the next issue on today's agenda, that's the jet engine issue. So there is some we are aware of the modernization program, the delays in engine deliveries for the LCA Mk2, 1A. And also, there is a negotiation going on between General Electric and Hindustan Aeronautics Limited for F4 and 4 engines to be licensed manufactured in India. These are meant for the LCA Mk2. That's great. That's distinction is important. So reports now say, a whole series of reports a few days back say that the cost for the same F4 and 4 engines for the AMCA, which is India's 5th generation fighter aircraft, have gone up. So essentially, for clarity, the F414 has been chosen not just for the LCA Mk2, which is a bigger aircraft than the Mark 1. It's also for the AMCA development, of under which 5 prototypes are meant to be manufactured. And then also the AMCA Mark 1, the first variant, which will be powered by the F414 engine. And for the Mark 2, it will be a much more powerful engine that is to be co-developed most likely with France, because negotiations are in advanced stages for that. So that's so the 4 goes beyond a platform. That's where the confusion came in. In a way, the reports also created confusion as to the larger deal itself. So the deal between GE and HAL, technical talks are over. Commercial conversations is underway. So that's expected to be wrapped up hopefully by the end of this year. Well, that's the case. Even that, by the way, will see a cost escalation because purely currency devaluation, rupee has fallen significantly in the last few years. And there is also a pressure on the supply chains. Input costs have gone up, supply chain disruptions, the war in Ukraine, and more recently, the conflict in West Asia. So they all have pushed up costs across. And then, of course, inflation. So all of this put together, the cost of the main deal is also expected to go up. Nonetheless, the current reports, what has come out, the cost of the engines tripling is with respect to the off-the-shelf purchase of 15 or so F414 engines by the Aeronautical Development Agency for the prototypes that are to be manufactured. So that distinction is essential. And as I said, there are two distinct parts. So the GHL deal will only cater to the Mark 2, LCA Mark 2. And the prototype, as I mentioned, will be a separate deal. And for the AMCA Mark 1, it will be a separate deal as and when it comes to that. So that will happen once this is done. We have follow on, but a separate deal. So on that, just quickly about the deal, as is known, it's license manufacturing. It's for the license is for the manufacturing process. That's important again. And as officials said, it's about 80% of manufacturing process will move to India, and essentially it will help Indian aerospace industry to go up the value chain. So in a way, this will also prepare the industry and the domestic industry, both public and private, for absorbing what comes in the co-development, which is expected to give much more in terms of technology. So it will be a gradual step in a way preparing the industry. That's also essential. And as I said, the F414 generates about 98 kiloton thrust, and that's why it was actually chosen for the Mark II. And as the aircraft was being designed, if you actually see here, the LCA Mark II became a bigger platform because the engine was bigger than, while the initial plan was, as you said, the middle option. That was the initial plan for the LCA Mark II. But then when the bigger engine was put in and the design redone, it actually became, it was realized that it actually became a more potent platform, carrying 11 hard points, significantly larger flight envelope. I'll come to some of the details shortly, statistics. So as I said, there are two programs. So this is probably discussed, so we'll just move. But just to add a quick point here, the LCA Mark II is meant to be a replacement for the Mirage 2000 in service. And Mirages have done played a very, very important role in the Indian Air Force, right from just after the Kargil War of 1999, Kargil conflict, my pardon. And then more recently, 2019, Balakot airstrike. And of course, 25, they were involved. But Rafale kind of stole the show in 2025. But Balakot airstrike, the airstrike on the terror camps in Balakot was actually done by the Mirage 2000s, supported, of course, by the flight package of other fighters. So the evolution of the LCA Mark II. So Mark I is quite limited because the platform is small and nimble. So the Mark II is going to fill that critical gap in numbers as a replacement of the Mirages and also the Jaguars, 6 squadrons. Mirage 3 squadrons, Jaguar 6 squadrons. So this will actually be the filler for those numbers in the middle segment as a single engine, medium weight fighter, medium role fighter. So that's what makes it really, really critical. Well, AMCA will take time. We are looking at a 10-year time frame for it to be ready for induction. But the AMCA is, the Mark II is supposed to be ready in the next few years, at least as per original timelines, though there is some slippage. The Mark II is supposed to undertake the maiden flight sometime end of this year, probably more likely the first quarter of next year. So as I said, Mark II has significantly moved in terms of capabilities. Also, as you can see, its parameters have significantly gone up from what it was envisaged to what it can do now, including carrying the heavier and PGMs like crystal maze, spice. Again, all of these were used during Balakot airstrike. Spice were the one dropped. Crystal maze did not reveal warm bracts because of SOP issue, but the Mirages were armed with the crystal maze and spice on the Mirage 2000s. These the Mark II can carry all of them. So that's another important aspect. And also a different radar, Indian radar is supposed to be put up. So that's another thing. And quickly on, before closing this issue, the AMCA. This is the AMCA design. Just to, we're aware of, as we discussed earlier, India is in talks with Safran of France for a co-developing 120 kilonewton engine. The F414 is a 98 kilonewton engine. So the Mark II AMCA will be much more powerful than the Mark I, almost 20% more power. So that is on, but again, the engine development will probably take a decade. And then, of course, the actual manufacturing and production, the assembly line. So that's, again, we are looking at a slightly longish time frame. And quickly in this, in fact, India has been in talks with Safran for 5 to 6 years at least. And there were moments when the deal was closed, but again, the deal did not fructify. That's when things opened up. GE had also put in a proposal, but more so, Rolls-Royce had given a detailed roadmap and proposal for developing a new 120 kilonewton engine for the AMCA Mark II. So as the recent tweet by Rolls-Royce, the proposal stands. Their proposal broadly says engine development by 2030, around that, and then the productionization. But that's where it is. But as of now, talks are in an advanced stage with Safran, expected again to conclude in the next few months, given that it was in focus during Prime Minister's visit to Paris recently, and also a few other high-level visits, engagement between India and France. So that's where we are on this issue. So now the last issue on the agenda today, the Rafale count. As you all will be familiar, during Operation Sindoor, India did suffer some losses, though it was not formally acknowledged, officially declared of what is the losses. So there has been a lot of buzz. While Pakistan has claimed a lot, the reality is not exactly that. No, there's an exaggeration. But the point is there were losses. And that has been accepted, tacitly acknowledged, but without definitive numbers. So if you can see on the screen, the first one was by then DG Air Ops, Air Marshal Bharti, who, in fact, in a response to my question as a journalist then, said losses are part of combat, but he only said all pilots are safe and objectives of the mission has been complete, but not getting into the numbers. Later, at the Shangri-La dialogue in Singapore, then CDS, Chief of Defense Staff, General Anil Chauhan, did say losses happened, but they were corrected, learned from the mistakes, and they, successfully delivered what they had to do in the next few days. And another important filler here is the comment by the Defense Secretary, R.K. Singh. In an interview to CNBC, the Defense Secretary, to a question on how many Rafales went down, he said, as you can see on the screen, you have used the term Rafales in the plural. I can assure you that is absolutely not correct. He did not deny it. He said plural is incorrect. So that means at least one. So while this is the case, and the official communication on this remains nothing so far as yet. Going back, why did it come up again and now? As you on the screen, the Air Force has issued a notice for a maintenance package as a bridge agreement for 5 months, and it refers to the 36 fleet. So now there has been a lot of commentary written across saying, so the Air Force refers to 36. So all jets are in service. There are no losses. Probably that's not the case. We'll understand. It's important to understand why. If you see again on the screen, it says a bridge agreement for 5 months. The original sustainment is for the fleet of 36. That was procured in September 2016, inducted in 2020. So that context is important. Keep the thoughts there. We'll just get to the next slide. So now, why is it important? The deal was signed, as I said, in September 2016 for 36 Rafale jets in flyaway conditions with India-specific enhancements. The deal was 7.87 billion euros, which also included, this is the important part, it also included logistics, maintenance, spares, performance-based logistics, PBL as it's called, and maintenance support for 5 years. And as part of which, the OEM or Dassault Aviation France, because it's a G2G, they were obligated to ensure 75% of the fleet at any point of time, 36, 27. So that's the math. And the first jets arrived in 2020 and formally inducted in September 2020. And 2026, so the first 5-year phase of the contract is over in so many ways, which means the PBL or the maintenance contract, because it's a blanket, the agreement was blanket, and there was also an inbuilt understanding in the original agreement, which also said that can be extended by 2 more years and then by another 5 more years. So till you renegotiate that agreement for 35 jets or whatever is the number, that if there are any losses, the blanket agreement covers 36 jets. And as the RFP issued by the Air Force said, it's a bridge agreement. So that would logically only cover what was already there, takes forward the original agreement and a bridge agreement. Till a new agreement is signed and approved by the MOD, the CCS, it has to go, the MOD, and then signed formally. Till then, this is what the case. So this is more of a continuation and terminology. So reading too much may not be the right thing. So that I'll leave that there. And as you can just see in the last bit, what I just mentioned, warranty extended by 2 years. I had actually factored in inflation. Probably no one factored in that the rupee depreciation would be so much in the last few years. So it was actually a well negotiated agreement for the maintenance part, as then Defense Minister Manohar Parrikar had alluded to on several occasions, and also said 5 more years upon negotiation, obviously factoring in the currency fluctuations, inflation, etc., etc. And for the entire deal, inflation has been then capped at 3.5% or current rate. Things have been under stress because of global geopolitical factors as well. So all of that will come into the next agreement. So that's the nuance in between. So I'll leave that there. That's all for today. Thank you. Watch, like, subscribe, post your comments, and keep tracking. Thank you so much.